OBS, and that seemed to have more issues than anything. But I'm dusting off old Restream, brought to you by it. So make sure you click on the link. I do affiliate with them as well. But I'm here just because I just wanted to give y'all some quick game on just the terrible thing that's going on in regards to NPR and PBS, and I just wanted to get my thoughts. So if you listen to it and couldn't really see and or hear, my apologies. So I appreciate you coming here. Make sure you hit the notifications button, subscribe clearly, and welcome to a community that will be able to just kind of talk about things as we see fit. Like, I think it's important for us to talk about it, but I have 7 minutes and 44 seconds of a conversation that was had with the CEO of NPR, courtesy of NBC News. So I wanted you all to hear it and just soak in what's being discussed or talked about. But also I'll come back with some quick thoughts and make sure that if you can't do this live or hear this live, make sure you go ahead and leave messages and comments and create a community where we can be able to talk about any and everything that's on our mind, if you believe what I'm saying or not. And I think we need to all have that. So this is a scene of the interview with the CEO of NPR as she discusses the end of funding for not only NPR, but also PBS as well.
As soon as tonight, the House is expected to vote on a bill that would claw back about $9 billion in previously approved funding. It comes over the Senate as the Senate passed those spending cuts overnight, I should say, which needs to be signed by the president by tomorrow night for the proposed cuts to go into effect. The cuts, known as rescissions, passed the Senate mostly on party lines, with Republican Senators Murkowski of Alaska and Collins of Maine signing with the Democrats. The bill claws back $8 billion in previously approved funds for foreign assistance programs and $1.1 billion for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which funds NPR and PBS. All of this is part of the president's effort to slash government spending, though it falls well short of the DOJ Commission's initial goal of cutting $2 trillion from the federal budget. In retaliation for these cuts, Democrats are now threatening to complicate the normal government funding process, which could lead to a government shutdown later this summer. Joining me now is Catherine Marr. She is the CEO of NPR. Catherine, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start by playing an exchange for you from the White House press secretary today during her press briefing. Take a listen.
I want to give you a chance to respond to the CEO of NPR. She's claiming that the cuts to their network will, quote, be a real risk to public safety of the country. Murkowski has argued that public broadcasting stations save lives. Could you respond to these concerns?
The NPR CEO said cutting NPR will be a risk to public safety. I am not sure how NPR helps the public safety of our country, but I do know that NPR, unfortunately, has become really just a propaganda voice for the left.
So here's your opportunity. How does NPR, how would cutting it be a risk to public safety?
So the most important thing for everyone watching to know is that these cuts are not about NPR. They are about the National Public Radio Network. 70% of all of the funds that are at risk right now go directly to local stations. Last night, while the Senate was on the floor debating this exact package, we saw a 7.3 register earthquake hit off the coast of Alaska. 3 stations immediately went into broadcast around tsunami warnings. The local sirens in their hometown told residents to tune in to their local radio station. Our staff in those, well, excuse me, not our staff, local staff in those stations stayed on the ground at sea level, putting themselves at risk to make sure that their local residents had the information they need. This is just one of the many ways in which public safety broadcasting plays out in the public media system around the nation on a regular basis.
And if you lose that funding, could those stations in Alaska, for instance, could they be at risk of shutting down completely, or how directly could it impact?
In Alaska, many of the stations receive up to 70% of their funding through federal dollars. Across the country, often tribal areas, rural areas, 50%. These are areas that are exposed to extreme weather patterns like tornadoes, for example. In Florida, along the hurricane coast, often at risk. We have seen estimates that as many as 80 stations could go dark, and almost all of these are stations that exist in these areas that otherwise have limited resources and limited access.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but let's now address this issue of the perceived bias of NPR. I want to play for you a little bit of a conversation I had with Senator Susan Collins. Take a listen.
I'm very concerned about what the impact will be on the emergency alert system in states like Maine, where the system is dependent on public radio. The problem has been NPR, which its own whistleblower, Yuri Berlin, said was extremely biased and that there was no one in the newsroom who was fair to Republicans, is essentially what he said. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. But we can defund NPR without disrupting the network of state and local public radio and television.
Is it? So, to be clear, she voted no against the rescission package. She opposes these cuts, but she is concerned about the perceived bias of your newsroom. What would you tell Senator Collins?
Well, I've had the fortune of thanking Senator Collins for her support and will continue to do so because she recognizes how important these local stations are and how important this funding is. One thing I would note is that NPR's programming makes up, on average, about 25%. That's a quarter of all programming aired by local stations. So really, we're talking about 75% that is reflective of local programming, local needs, and other national programmers. I would say to Senator Collins that we have heard these concerns. We've heard these concerns from her. We've heard these concerns from other members. And we've certainly been talking to our audiences in more than 246 stations across the country to understand what they need out of public broadcasting. We want to make sure that we're available and relevant to the entire American public, regardless of where you sit and regardless of what your political beliefs are. And we've been taking the steps from an editorial standpoint to better understand what audience needs are and have more voices on air that reflect that.
So do you concede that those changes need to be made?
Well, you know, I came in about a year ago, and it was my view that NPR needed a strategy that was really focused on serving the nation. Mm-hmm. That is not an issue of partisan bias. That is about making sure that as our country continues to change, we remain relevant for all of the different lifestyles that Americans have across the nation, whether you work as a farmer, whether you work in a city. There are so many different experiences that this country has. We need to reflect all of that.
Okay, let's talk now about the immediate impact of this package and the cuts to public broadcasting. Right now, if you're the general manager of a rural station in Iowa or Idaho, how quickly are you going to have to deal with these cuts, and how quickly could you be forced to make tough decisions?
Stations are already dealing with these cuts. We've seen layoffs of journalists, local journalists. Indiana recently cut all funding, all state funding for their local public radio stations. The entire Indiana state State House News team is now gone. We've seen Florida just cut its state funding, and now Florida stations are making really difficult decisions about what they can sustain. Local journalists are going to be among the first who are at risk. Broadcast coverage will also be at risk. And as I said, we're going to see stations go dark potentially in the next quarter.
What about nationally? Is the NPR newsroom at risk? How soon will you have to make difficult decisions about your staffing at the national level?
It's a great question. I think that we're going to be dealing with those decisions over the course of the next 3 to 6 months.
Okay. And at this point, is there anything else you can do? Is it a situation of where are you concerned that if these cuts go into effect, even if a new administration were to come in down the road or Democrats were to win back the House in the 2026 midterms, will these cuts be difficult to claw back? You can't just restart a station that shuts down.
You can't just restart a station that shuts down. Once you start punching holes in the national network that serves all Americans and has done so for 50 years, you will start to see that those will not be able to come back. This is infrastructure that exists that serves difficult topographies in the mountains and in the valleys across the nation. It serves large geographies in some of our most rural communities. Those will start to eventually erode, and they may do so sooner than we think. And unfortunately, that will be difficult to recover.
Okay, Catherine Marr, thank you for being here and being so honest with your perspective. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So here we are with the defunding of two infrastructures that's been around for 50 years or so. But deeper than that, if you didn't miss the OBS one that I, put out there live and deleted, I'm going to say this because the White House press secretary basically said that there's a lot of propaganda that is spewing out there in regards to NPR and PBS. So I would challenge her with this. What does Fox News do then? If you think it's from one side, then what is Fox News? They spew propaganda too, but it just so happens to be that station you believe in wholeheartedly with whatever it is that you believe in. So this is where we're at right now. And to me, I don't think that's right for people to have a one-sided opinion regarding whatever it is that you want to um, believe in. I think we should always get two sides of a story and then form your own truth, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. Um, so I dare anybody to challenge that, and you got to think about the impact that it will have on different cities across the board that is affected by this defunding um, of broadcasting systems that is vital to alerts, local things of that nature. It's very, very important that we address the elephant in the room in regards to that. And the one of the big elephants in the room is Project 2025. Anybody that is challenging someone else's authority, they want to shut down everything they possibly can in regards to that. I don't think it's right. I hope you don't think it's right. You can have all your grievances you want with NPR and PBS and how it's run and everything of that nature. But one thing that us as journalists should want is an unbiased opinion. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. But you also have to remember that if, especially with this administration, and it was like that when he took over in his first term, if you are challenging someone because you're fact checking them and those facts are brought to your table and you just ignore the truth, then do you really and truly understand why we're here right now? Because if we had an administration that was forthright and open to specific things, then we would have a totally different conversation. And we may not even have the defunding of PBS and NPR because we have to live in a world that is based on your truth and my truth, and somewhere in the middle is where it needs to be. And that's okay. That should be okay. But if you're trying to chip away at specific things in the society when it comes to how we manage our specific things and what we need to do in order for us to be able to have a difference of opinion, and you just want to use smoke and mirrors to play this game, and you're being challenged, and you then use your political power to shut down things, then you and I have a problem. And I think if you're continuing to go to war with Democrats and Democrats are continuing to go to war with you because somebody can tell the truth and somebody can't, we're going to have a bigger problem with how you handle democracy and everything else that comes with it. So I have a huge problem with how things are right now. And if you don't have that problem and you're starting to see the cracks continuing to be bigger and bigger and bigger, then I'm sorry. We are faced with dire times in this country as a whole. If you can't understand someone's Democrats and Republicans, you both are held accountable for the venom that you're spitting regardless. And you can play the game like kids. Well, he hit me first, or he said this name, he called me out my name, so I'm going to bust back and do whatever. All you people are getting paid. Well, there's a lot of us out here, small business owners, people out there struggling, trying to make it. So you're comfortable in your seats arguing back and forth over certain things, but nobody can meet in the middle. I've never seen a situation where we've had that over the course of, let's just say, the last decade and a half, or maybe longer. I don't know. But something's got to give, something's got to change. And here we are with the defunding. And you heard it from the CEO. She said it best. They're already starting to chip away at certain things. Layoffs are happening to journalists. It's a big problem. And until we can figure out what we can do, I'm going to do what I can with my media platform to just say meet in the middle. Hopefully more good will outrun the bad. Hopefully we can be able to have a situation where we can all come together and be like, you know what, I don't agree with you, but I'm with you. I respect your views. And this is where we are. And I respectfully think that people who are saying that NPR is biased is not reading the room right. How can you be biased when the current administration is lying all day? And we have to go back and we have to challenge and we have to fact check and we have to do what needs to be done. That's exhausting for a lot of people. So NPR, PBS, anybody else, my station, everybody has a right to go back and check you for what the hell is going on. This is sad, y'all. This is sad. The way that things are being done these days is very, very disturbing. And how can we handle it? I mean, like I said, this is Project 2025 all over again. When it comes to, this administration says they knew nothing about it. But if you go back and you look at it, there's a lot of boxes being checked off right now in terms of what they're doing. And it's not coincidental. These people are lying to you just like they lie all day within the government. And I don't care what party's there. Once you step foot into whatever office you're in, do you really and truly have the best interests of the American people, or are you shielding some of the lies that don't need to be put public? I mean, stop playing this fucking game and just face facts. This is the way it is, and it's really turned on its head even more so now than it's ever been. I love Barack Obama, and I love, Biden was cool. I mean, even some of the Bushes were fine. I mean, Clinton was fine. But when I look at my whole way of living and what's going on with me personally and where I live, none of these presidents did nothing for me. Everything I did for myself with the help of my family and people who really looked out for me and shit like that. Just being true. So when we have a current president that's a mouthpiece and he lies, then what does that make everybody else? When you have Fox and all they do is throw shade and propaganda at anything that challenges the president, then where does that leave you? If you have a situation where you have non-biased opinions and you want to put this out here in public and everything that comes with it, then that should be literally important for the American people to be able to figure out what the truth is. I don't believe everything the government says because they lie all fucking day. So give me an outlet where I can be able to hear some other opinions other than their opinions. I refuse to be programmed. And that's why NPR will always be simulcast to the very end. NPR will always be simulcast on my station because they deserve it. And if I could do something special for PBS, I will. And I want to talk to anybody that either works there or works for them to come holler at me, and I'll do whatever I can to keep whatever it is that's going on. NPR as well. We need another opinion in this world. And I hate that this administration is shutting down and turning dark so many different ways of going about it. So we have to figure out different ways to be able to change as a country and stop the lies that's being spewed by a lot of different people on both sides of the fence. Just saying, like, we need to be active and activate on what's real instead of giving in to what's fake. So the choice is yours, y'all, in terms of what it is that you want to do. So I just wanted to put that out there. I wanted to throw that news clip out there. I wanted to give you my thoughts, and I just wanted to share my views on it as well. So I appreciate you tuning in. Once again, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, hit the notifications button. Just look at everything that I try to do. I try to bring everything from TV to talk radio to podcasts, old podcasts that I did, and just bring some realization to like some of the things that's going on in the industry of not just entertainment, but news and political views and anything and everything else that comes with it. So I appreciate you all. Until the next time, thanks a lot.